Box office top 10 this week. Nowhere in the 10, as far as I can see. Here, question mark. So this is from...
Terrible film.
Just trying to see who this is actually from. Oh, it's from Kent. But I thought that was the actual place that it had been sent from. But I think Kent is the person who sent it.
As in Clark Kent.
Exactly. Zemeckis seems to have begun his descent. Here was a film I had little interest in viewing. So, quizzical minds speculate, why did I then subject myself to it? I suppose, like Shyamalan, you go in with an inkling of hope. These guys have proven themselves capable storytellers, but regrettably have abandoned those gifts that marked them as grand. Thank you for continuing excellent in cinematic appraisals. All the best, Kent, from that sunburnt land down under. Yeah. I see. Thank you, Kent. Yeah. And Eamon says, unfortunately, I had already booked my ticket to see Here before hearing Mark's review last week. Robert Zemeckis has achieved something quite remarkable with this film. For the modest budget of around $45 million, he has managed to recreate the essence of the video shorts you see in museums where actors in historical garb provide eyewitness accounts of a period in time. However, unlike Here, those pieces rarely outstay their welcome. Warm regards, Eamon.
That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. It's exactly right.
And Bernd says, greetings from a faithful listener in Germany. Thank you, Bernd. Regarding your review of Here, which you described as mawkish, saccharine, and an early contender for worst movie of the year.
Yes.
As a fascinating alternative and successful variation on the same premise, I'd like to draw you and your listeners' attention to the 2017 movie A Ghost Story, written and directed by David Lowery. Mm-hmm. This film also takes place in one physical location only, through the ages, but mainly when this location is inside a house. The story is told subjectively from the perspective of the eponymous ghost of the house, who goes on spooking in the same place even after the house is gone. The way the makers of the film pulled this off and made the premise work by the very simple means of a very low-budget film took my breath away. I am doubtful whether I should call it chutzpah or genius. You will either hate this film or it'll stay with you until the end of time.
Yes,
says Bernd.
I think I'm a big fan of David Lowery, and it is worth saying that when watching Presence, it's impossible not to have that film in your mind as well.
So into the 10, A Real Pain is at 10.
You and I both really liked, and I think it does. I was saying in that review of Presence that I think it doesn't earn the right to deal with the stuff that it deals with at the end. I think in the case of A Real Pain, it does earn the right to deal with the very, very complex subject matter that it wrestles with, and I think that's quite remarkable.
The other thing, which I did have it written down to discuss, but obviously the interview with Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin went off in a number of different unexpected areas. This has been discussed elsewhere. The fact that Kieran Culkin isn't Jewish in a very Jewish film, by the end of the film, that doesn't seem like a relevant question. Some people may think it still does. And I know David Baddiel has often asked this question about Jew face and whether it's okay for people to play Jewish roles when they're not Jewish. But I suspect that no one is going to say that because they'll agree with Jesse Eisenberg that the only person who could have played that role was Kieran Culkin. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that is perfectly fair, yeah. Yeah, and I was not troubled by that at all.
Number 9 is Wicked.
We've
probably said it.
I had the great privilege I interviewed Cynthia Erivo on stage at the BFI just earlier on, and she came on. You know, she wears those fingernails, and she had the fingernails are like about a foot long. It's Fantastic. Absolutely extraordinary. Yeah, and I loved Wicked. I thought it was great, and I can't wait for this time next year, so I know how it ends.
Moana 2 is at number 7 in America, number 8 in the UK.
8 weeks in the charts, and remember this was originally designed as a straight-to-streaming project. So, as of course was Toy Story 2. So, hey.
Number 7 here is Wolfman. It's a new entry, an email from Matthew.
Yes.
I've been defending the potential of this movie for weeks. When people were saying it looked bad, I felt compelled to chime in with The Fly meets Wolfman, sign me up. Or He's made Upgrade and Invisible Man. The trailers aren't showing you everything. You just wait. Well, I was wrong. What a weak, dull movie. You know why The Fly was good? Because Jeff Goldblum had charisma and charm, and the script was funny, and I cared about him and Gina Davis. I just didn't care about this man or his family or their relationship or their kid. The transformation was boring. The fights were dull. It wasn't scary or funny or sad. It took too long to get going. If you're going to spend 40 minutes on setup, I need more than I don't know if I love you or not, and I don't think I'm a good mum. I'm genuinely disappointed. I wanted to so much to like this. I had faith in the director, in the slow burn, long form transformation concept. His references from The Fly to a more were on point. As you said, on paper this works. I'd say as a concept, 10 out of 10. Unfortunately, in practice, it's a 5.
Yeah, a perfect review.
Thank you, Matthew. Number 6 here, 8 in America, is Baby Girl,
which I liked more than some people, but I'm glad to see it is still in the top 10, because I know some people I know have really taken against it, but I think although it doesn't entirely work, it does have a serious satirical intent.
We Live in Time is at number 5.
Very good central performances, which really kind of breathe life into what could otherwise have been a sort of formal exercise in time shifting.
Nosferatu is at 4, number 3 in America.
I'll say it again. Nosferatu, yes, Ferratu. I had such a good time with this film. I just loved it.
Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is at 3.
Oh, Jim Carrey wasn't going to make another film until he got a script that really said something. And this really says something. It says it's been in the charts for 4 weeks. It's making a fortune. Sorry, come on.
Sorry, Mufasa the Lion King is at number 2 here, number 2 in America.
I think both you and I share reservations. Hats off to Barry Jenkins for doing what he did, but it's not enough.
Number 5 in the States, but the UK number 1 is A Complete Unknown. So here are a couple of emails.
Yes.
So Anne from Chiswick. I went to see A Complete Unknown when it came out on Friday with my younger brother, who looks like a young Dylan and plays the guitar very well too. I was skeptical, as I had listened to your somewhat divided review of the film in last week's pod, although it was Movie of the Week.
Yeah, it was.
But can safely confirm that I am 100% with Simon on this one. Sorry, Mark. I think the reason for this is quite simply the music. Dylan's songs are just so comforting and inspiring to listen to, and I thought that Timothée Chalamet's interpretation of them, while still mimicking the growl of Dylan, were even more melodious than Dylan's version of them. It was just tune after tune, poem after poem, and despite a bit of tampering with the facts, isn't the point of the film to celebrate and share the music? The students at the school where I teach music had not heard of Bob Dylan, but we are now singing choruses of Mr. Tambourine Man and Blown in the Wind in class, and they are hooked. I think if truly great music is the central character of any movie, and you're someone that really gets and feels the music, then you just can't fail to have an enjoyable experience. The music always wins. Love the show. All the best. Anne in Chiswick. Daniel Reinold. The reason I took against Bo Rap, as everyone was calling it, was because it presented as a straight biopic while taking enormous liberties with the truth. I don't know how many people I had to tell that Freddie did not know he had HIV prior to Live Aid, and that the band was nowhere close to breaking up then, but Mark seemed to thoroughly enjoy it. So I was surprised that he was so disturbed by a mere geographical error in A Complete Unknown, especially since, unlike the Bo Rap lies, yes, there I said it, it still conveys the essential truth of the seismic event that was the Judas incident. Anyway, there's other correspondence about that. Oh, by the way, I just want to mention, thank you to the person who sent a wonderful observation. Again, I think this was on Blue Sky, who went to see A Complete Unknown, enjoyed it, went to the toilet afterwards, washed his hands afterwards, was drying his hands under the dryer, and said to the person next to him, Pete Seeger would have put in a towel. And I thought that was very, very smart. Anyway, UK's number 1 is A Complete Unknown.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it was really interesting, you and I having that conversation about it, because I really like the sort of, the back and forth of that. My reservations about it, as I've said, are largely personal. It was interesting. Earlier this week, I did a show at the BFI, and I found myself afterwards in my favorite pizza restaurant, and I was talking loudly, as I do, and I was talking loudly about the fact that you cannot move the Judas heckle from Manchester to there. It's not just a geo. And anyway, there was a heated discussion at the table, and then later on, as somebody was leaving the restaurant, been talking so loudly that they had heard, and which embarrasses me terribly. But they went, "You're right, you can't move the Judas thing." Of course you can, and of
Yes.
course there was an argument that was made by James Mangold, and how that sits with you is entirely up to you. I think there are many things that the film gets right. It never, to use the phrase I use for it, never got me in the feels. And it may well be that it's to do with the partial ambivalence about Dylan. But the film is very ambivalent about Dylan. The thing, I think the thing to credit it with is that it does indeed portray him as Monica Barbara's Joan Baez says, a bit of an asshole.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. But
just one other thing on the film, which maybe we mentioned last week. I don't know if we did. I think for a biopic, it concentrates to a remarkable extent. This sounds a bit weird. Concentrates to a remarkable extent on the songs, which you hear all the way through.
Yes, that is true.
You don't get chopped up montages or anything. If he's in the, when he sings "Blowing in the Wind" because Joan Baez has chucked him the sheet, says sing this. Okay, it's a little bit contrived, but you get the whole thing, and then she harmonizes on the end. It does really hang the whole thing on his music.
It does. And the only comparison I can make with that is Asif Kapadia's film about Amy Winehouse, which of course was a documentary, but in which it told the story through her lyrics. And I think that is a strength of the film.